888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Now, Larry, you be nice. Don't gloat. Glenn Youngkin wins the Virginia race for governor. New Jersey, too close to tell. Virginia elects its first black woman to statewide office. She is lieutenant governor. Please welcome the new black face of white supremacy. And I'm watching a lot of MSNBC hee-haw last night. It was hysterical. And they're attributing this to racism. That the Republicans were able to use critical race theory and race and racism and use race and race and race and race. You know, I was just thinking, if white people spend as much time thinking about black people as black pundits think white people spend thinking about black people, white people would be eligible for unemployment. Next hour, we're going to talk to Alex Marlow. He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart, about how Facebook is shafting Breitbart and also shafting other conservative outlets. That NBA star continues to hammer China about its repressive practices and about its subjugation of Hong Kong. I guess King James was unavailable for comment. We're going to talk later on in the show about culture and the wealth gap. 888-971-SAGE is our number. I want to talk to you about what happened last night. Feel free to give me a call and give me your thoughts. Here was Joe Biden before the election.
Could this signal your real losses for Democrats in the midterms?
We're going to win. I think we're going to win in Virginia. And you know, you're reporting it being close. The race is very close. So it's about who shows up, who turns out. And granted, I did win by a large margin. But the point of the matter is that I think that this is going to be, we all knew from the beginning, this is going to be a tight race. And it is tight. And it's going to get down to turnout. And it's going to, my guess is I'm going to be landing at 1 o'clock in the morning East Coast time. That's probably about the time we'll be hearing what the final results are. I think we're going to win New Jersey as well. But look, you know, the off year is always unpredictable, especially when we don't have a general election going on at the same time. That's been the case up and down, you know, for a long time, especially as Virginia's turned more and more blue.
I have to take it back for two pieces of news. We're going to dip in and listen to the governor of New Jersey, but more importantly, we've just made a call. NBC News has determined that when all the votes are in, Glenn Youngkin is the governor-elect of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Yikes.
He was able to piece together a victory, keeping Donald Trump at bay while going hard on state issues and not turning away all aspects of Trumpism.
And not turning away all aspects of Trumpism. What the hell does that mean? Really? And not turning away all aspects of Trumpism. Trump did not come there to campaign for him. Trump did support him. And not turn away all aspects of Trumpism. The man won on the issue of schools, of making sure that parents had a say, of going after McAuliffe, who said that parents ought not be determining what the curriculum is, of how the school board apparently covered up the attack against a girl by a boy dressed in a dress, was allowed to go into the girl's bathroom apparently because of their policy allowing people to determine what their sex is. Didn't turn away all aspects of Trumpism. What does that mean? Help me out here.
At bay while going hard on state issues and not turning away all aspects of Trumpism.
And not turning away all aspects of Trumpism. Sheila Jackson Lee. Here is her analysis. This is the Democrat from Texas.
I really define Virginia as a case that was about local issues. Those were about parental issues.
Okay. All right. So far, so good.
And unfortunately, racism raised its ugly head.
Okay. I thought it was about local issues, but now racism has reared its ugly head. Keep in mind, the lieutenant governor of Virginia is the first black female to be elected statewide, and Sheila Jackson Lee says racism has reared its ugly head after the victory by Glenn Youngkin last night.
Racism raised its ugly head, and the Republican candidate used it very aptly. He followed the Trump playbook.
Trump! Follow the Trump playbook. Trump, of course, sent a dog whistle to racist white people, which is why he got a smaller percentage of the white vote than did Mitt Romney, who didn't send a dog whistle. And I've told you before, the town that voted most for Donald Trump, over 100,000, is Abilene, Texas, a town that after they voted for Donald Trump, voted for its first black mayor in their nearly 140-year history.
Use race and get a win, and that's very sad.
He used race to get a win. How did he use race to get a win? Which means the people that voted for him are, of course, racist.
It's very sad. I mean, I'm not going to tie that to Democrats or anything we did here in Washington. I'm going to tie that to continuing to try to work to promote the beloved community that Martin King and John Lewis talked about.
In other words, white lash.
This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president.
I didn't do anything. Don't tase me, bro. Don't tase me. I didn't do anything. Ow! 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 Ow!
That was Van Johnson when Donald Trump got elected. This is Joshua Johnson. Van Jones, excuse me. This is Joshua Johnson, NBC last night.
This wasn't about those pocketbook issues. This was about how white kids feel talking about what black kids go through.
This is about how white kids feel talking about what black kids go through. Nothing to do with curriculum. Nothing to do with face mask and vaccine mandates. This is about how white kids feel about talking about what black kids go through. Again, if white people spent a fraction of time thinking as much about black people as these black pundits think they do, when will white people have time to do anything?
Let's just call it what it is. This is about kids who were ready to have a conversation about race after George Floyd was murdered, and adults pushing the issue back and understandably being nervous about talking about it.
Kids being ready to have a conversation about race after George Floyd was murdered. When haven't we had a conversation about race? That's all you guys talk about. Trump, racism, Trump, racism. We're ready to have we're just on the brink of having a conversation. We're just about ready to have a conversation about race. And then all of a sudden.
And Glenn Youngkin being able to make political hay of that. That's really what this was about. Youngkin was able to make hay of it because he had the rhetoric. I think Democrats are going to have some results in terms of the way they talk about race to push back.
Democrats are going to have results in terms of the way they talk about race to push back. Meanwhile, Asian Americans, Japanese Americans, Chinese Americans, Korean Americans, higher net worth than white Americans. Let's talk about race in a much better way than they've been able to talk about race in a bad way, because we need to talk about race. Otherwise, what will we talk about if we're not talking about race? Because
this was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president.
I didn't do anything. Don't tase me, bro. Don't tase me. I didn't do anything. Ow! Ow! Ow!
Judge Thomas, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to Salem Now.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Do you realize that Terry McAuliffe is still going around saying that Stacey Abrams had the election in Georgia stolen from her? I thought you weren't allowed to question the outcome of the election.
And he's running down the democracy, saying that our elections are not fair.
The next day.
She would be the governor of Georgia today had the governor of Georgia not disenfranchised 1.4 million Georgia voters before the election. That's what happened to Stacey Abrams. They took the votes away.
Uh-oh. Hey, YouTube, you better ban me, because I just played a clip of Democrat Terry McAuliffe claiming that Stacey Abrams had the election stolen from her. That's election misinformation. If Virginia elects Terry McAuliffe next week, you'll deserve every bit of the misery you're going to get.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Judge Thomas, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
57 Muslim states in the world, one Jewish state.
Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
There's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Hello, I was listening to a little clip from CNN, and they were interviewing the Democrat that's running for governor in Virginia, and he's making all these wild, crazy allegations against straw men and trying to imply that all Republicans are racist. He's talking about that, we had good school boards and everything was going good until this Republican started running, and as soon as that happened, then parents started showing up and getting out of control. And he's talking about this one school board member that was saying that she was getting threats, and people were calling up and threatening to rape her children, and she said, well, that's just too much. And, and nobody tried to stop him. Nobody said, hey, hold on there, sir. You're talking a bunch of nonsense.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReallyFactor.com. So, Virginia has had a black governor, Doug Wilder. Now, were they not racist then, but they're racist now? The racism didn't kick in until after he got elected? I'm just kind of... Now, all of you out there know that MyPillow doesn't have their box doors or any shopping channels. They have been part of this cancel culture, and they want to pass on the savings directly to you. You can get the lowest price in history of MyPillow for their classic standard MyPillow, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with promo code. Now they've got queen size, regularly $79.98, now $24.98 with promo code, or king size, regularly $89.98, now only $29.98 with your promo code. And MyPillow is not just pillows. They have over 150 products, everything from sleepwear to My New Beds. Promo code also works on mystore.com and frankspeech.com. Just go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-890-1843 and use promo code Larry to take advantage of Mike's special offer on their standard MyPillow. That's mypillow.com, promo code Larry, or call 1-800-890-1843. Last night, it wasn't complicated. I'm watching all of this analyses from these pundits on CNN and on MSNBC, so you don't have to, and reading a lot of articles in newspapers like the New York Times, so you don't have to, LA Times, so you don't have to. And they're all talking about this, that, and the other, and about how Joe Biden didn't get his agenda done, and now they think that the Democrats don't have their act together, and they can't figure out how to get their infrastructure bill, and it's gone from $3 trillion to $3.5 trillion to $1 to... It's not that. They're sick of being led by Joe Biden with his diminished capacity and the squad. That's it. Sick of this. Defund the police was on the ballot in Minneapolis. It failed. New Jersey, a deep blue state, right now it is neck and neck. And even if the Democrat pulls it out, that is a vast wake-up call. Inflation. People being paid not to work. Critical race theory. Out of control borders. Afghanistan. Leaving behind Americans. Leaving behind $100 billion worth of cutting-edge military equipment to a terror state. Sick of it. Absolutely sick of it. All of the spending. People can't find people to work. Out here in California, they're still paying people not to work. All sorts of ways you can avoid paying rent. And you're shocked that the American people have had it? And then all this stuff going on at local schools. Well, they don't really teach critical race theory in Virginia. It's a big lie. Have you seen some of the documents that they're recommending kids read and teachers use? They're referring to critical race theory. When we are in a time in America where, as I've said 1 billion times, racism has never been less significant. Chinese American woman became mayor of Boston. She's a Democrat, but she's Chinese American. Black female becomes lieutenant governor of Virginia. Yet the governor used race in order to win the election, while the people of Virginia that elected somebody because he used race then turn around and elect a black female as lieutenant governor. Are you smelling something? People have had it. They had it with being pushed around. They had it with a Joe Biden who's now mandating that private businesses force their employees, if they have over 100 people, to be vaccinated. They're sick of it. Economy doing badly. Letting in people illegally in the country who haven't been tested for COVID. Yet you're making Americans get tested for COVID. Firefighters, police officers all over the country under threat of being fired unless they get a vaccine that many of them don't want for all sorts of various reasons. All the inconsistent data we're getting from the CDC, from Dr. Fauci. Now we're finding out people who are vaccinated are as likely to give coronavirus to people as are the unvaccinated. That is not a case for not getting vaccinated. The point is, when Colin Powell died, 84 years old, had comorbidities, and the narrative was, well, he got it from somebody. And it was probably an unvaccinated person he got it from. Now it turns out, to the extent he got it from somebody, it's almost as likely he got it from somebody who's vaccinated. You have prominent medical professors from Stanford, from Harvard saying, well, what are you talking about vaccinating children? They're not likely to get sick, not likely to get real sick, not likely to be hospitalized, and certainly not likely to die. Dr. Ben Carson called it an experiment. People have had it being pushed around. Mandating out here in Los Angeles that if you have a business, you must make people who enter your business show proof of being vaccinated. People have had it. Sick of it. Kamala Harris in charge of the borders. Look at the borders. It is not complicated. How much more money are we going to spend? All sorts of social programs, climate change, paid family medical leave, free college tuition, free pre-K. People have had it. And now they're kind of looking back at Donald Trump's economy and going, maybe it wasn't that bad. All-time low unemployment for blacks, all-time low unemployment for Hispanics, all-time low unemployment for Asian Americans, for females. Borders were secured. Support school choice. Supported enterprise zones so that there was greater economic development in the inner city. People have had it. It is not complicated. It is a refutation of Joe Biden and the squad. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. It's not complicated. I'm Larry Elder.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
We have people losing careers in multi-million-dollar jobs because they refuse to take the vaccine that does not 100% prevent you from getting the virus. Breakthrough cases, people with the vaccine who are vaccinated are dying, and yet they say we still need to destroy your life, even if you have natural immunity, even if you have the antibodies. So one example in particular, there's two examples that highlight this, I think, rather well. The first is a place that all of you should go for lunch today, especially if you're listening on the West Coast. In-N-Out Burger. In-N-Out Burger is phenomenal. They are a wonderful company. They do a great job. The owners are Christians. And they deserve your support because now in San Francisco's only In-N-Out location, they've said, look, we are refusing to enforce the San Francisco vaccine mandate. We're not going to go ask people, show us your papers. And I'm going to be honest, people are fighting back. But to the level that we are tolerating the show me your papers, show me your medical records to go get a burger in San Francisco, America's fallen in a great regard. Now, San Francisco's its own place. San Francisco is the greatest example of anarcho-tyranny. Anarcho-tyranny, where it's complete anarchy if you want to do drugs on the side of the street, if you want to defecate in a park, that's their idea of freedom. If you want to wear no clothes, you can walk through the streets of San Francisco.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
It's not just about saying I have a right in this country to not have the government not allow me to go to church, but also that the government cannot compel me to participate in any sort of event, including a vaccine, by the way, that goes against my sincerely held religious beliefs. And so it should just be a matter of course that if you have a conscious objection, then you can say, I, as a Christian, as a Muslim, as a Jew, as any sort of religion. I mean, this covers all religions, by the way, all faiths, all sincerely held beliefs. You should be able to say, I decline to be coerced into participation. But what we're seeing is that a lot of employers are not only requiring a lot of information for people to say, well, you have to justify your religious exemption. We're also seeing that they want this so-called, what they're calling an interactive process. That's basically an interrogation. I have clients right now that they have filed for a religious exemption on the basis of we're pro-life, that's what the Bible teaches, and I cannot take this vaccine. And the Human Resources Department, from the legal counsel of these employers, want to sit down and basically interrogate them and say, is this really a sincerely held religious belief? And they're using this as a pretext to try to deny religious exemptions. It's absurd, and I hope that when there are more lawsuits filed, like just today, in Texas, United Airlines was forbidden from enforcing their vaccine mandate against employees who are claiming a religious exemption. So we're already seeing that the courts are protecting this, but hopefully it'll be more than just Texas.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Trump, Donald Trump, 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 Donald Trump. He keeps invoking Trump. Donald Trump, Donald Trump, 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 Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Trump, Donald Trump, 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 Donald Trump, 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 Donald Trump, Trump, Donald Trump.
Have you made this race too much about Trump?
No. Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Trump, Donald Trump, 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 Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Trump, Donald Trump, 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 Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, 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 Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Trump, Trump. Do you know, Dan, this isn't about Trump.
888-971-SAG, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. We're ready to launch something big, and I want you to be part of it. If you like listening to my show, you will love watching it also on SalemNewsChannel.com. Right now, you can watch it on YouTube.com/The Larry Elder Show Radio, live as we do it. And next hour, we're going to have in the editor-in-chief of Breitbart, Alex Marlow. You can also watch us on Roku. Just type Salem News Channel into the search bar. Come check us out. We are the antidote to the mainstream media. Soon, we will begin adding new TV-only hours. This is only going to get bigger and better. Thank you for all you're doing to make this thing successful. We are on a mission, and you are a huge part of said mission. Kamala Harris, before last night's vote, right before it said this.
Because you see, what happens in Virginia will in large part determine what happens in 2022, 2024, and on.
And I told you that Terry McAuliffe, by the way, he's former head of the DNC. Last night they kept calling him former governor of Virginia, and that's true, but he also was the head of the DNC. So supposedly has his finger on the pulse of the country. Lost. Lost because he drew the wrong lessons from my race against Gavin Newsom out here in California. Gavin Newsom turned this into a referendum against Donald Trump. He said that Elder was more Trump than Trump. Called me a Trump Republican, Trump wannabe, Trump light. And I've said before, when all these people, same ones who went to Virginia to help McAuliffe, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, they either came out here, Biden did, or cut commercials for Gavin Newsom. And they all said the same thing. Stop the Republican takeover. The Republican takeover. And it worked out here. Because half the state is registered Democrat and 25% registered Republicans, independents rather, and registered independents in California, even the New York Times admitted, vote Democrat. So you're really talking about close to 75% of the state either Democrat or inclined to vote Democrat. So that crap worked out here. And plus you had a media that did not pressure him to debate. In Virginia, they had a debate. And during the debate, Youngkin cleverly pointed out, how many more times are you going to say Trump? And can you imagine a media in Virginia allowing one of the candidates to be called the black face of white supremacy? Did they call the lieutenant governor, current lieutenant governor-elect, the black face of white supremacy? No, they didn't. Any paper out there would have been hammered. But out here, because California is so liberal and not racist, that's just a descriptive term of me. It wasn't racist. He was just they were just stating the facts. They tried the same nonsense, and he insulted parents, and Obama insulted parents by acting like the whole issue over being concerned about curricula and being concerned about the cover-up of the boy that wore the dress that sexually assaulted a girl, and then they transferred him to another school. He suggested that it was a phony crisis trumped up by the Republicans. And people in Virginia were ticked off. They tried the same nonsense. You don't think people are looking at this guy, Joe Biden? 71% of the nation thinks we're on the wrong track. Hello? Wrong track on the economy? Wrong track on foreign policy? Especially the way he handled Afghanistan? Wrong track on the borders? Looking at all this spending and people now no longer want to work? Are you kidding me? Now, I suggest you consider ordering the 3-week Quick Start. Still discounted to only $19.95. That is less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. After that, we're talking about less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. You see, the docs who design Relief Factor believe our bodies are designed to heal. And that is why they selected 4 100% drug-free ingredients, each of which will deal with pain from a different metabolic pathway. So, if you have back, shoulder, neck, hip, foot, knee pain from exercise, or just getting older, consider ordering the 3-week Quick Start. Over 70% of those who order it go on to order more. ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384.
Judge Thomas, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
How buoyed are you that Americans are finally waking up, JD?
Look, I'm very excited about what I'm seeing. Certainly in Virginia, but also in Ohio. It feels like there's a real grassroots movement brewing on the conservative movement right now. And it's, just like in times past, it's not just the politicos, it's not just the establishment folks. Sometimes not even people who are that political, but they're just very fired up about what their kids are teaching. Their kids are coming home crying, upset because they're being told that they're a bad person depending on the color of their skin, and they're just fed up about it. And I think it may very well take down Terry McAuliffe, but I certainly think it is the beginning of a movement all across this country.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Do you realize that Terry McAuliffe is still going around saying that Stacey Abrams had the election in Georgia stolen from her? I thought you weren't allowed to question the outcome of the election.
And he's running down the democracy, saying that our elections are not fair.
The next day.
She would be the governor of Georgia today had the governor of Georgia not disenfranchised 1.4 million Georgia voters before the election. That's what happened to Stacey Abrams. They took the votes away.
Uh-oh. Hey, YouTube, you better ban me, because I just played a clip of Democrat Terry McAuliffe claiming that Stacey Abrams had the election stolen from her. That's election misinformation. If Virginia elects Terry McAuliffe next week, you'll deserve every bit of the misery you're going to get.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
But it is what it is. We continue to see Operation Chaos play out. It's the delegitimization of most of our cultural and governmental institutions. Started out with churches, and they attacked families, of course the police, now the courts. They're destroying all medical knowledge and expertise. They want to take us to Marxism, sir. We need you to be one of the standing voices, the beacon of freedom here in the United States. Keep up the good work, Mr. Sage. Appreciate you, sir. Bye-bye.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Once again, I think the more appropriate term is fascism, not Marxism, not socialism. Socialism is government ownership of means of production. These guys want to do what Joe Biden is doing, telling privately owned companies that you have to have your employees vaccinated if you have 100 or more people. Out here in California, Gavin Newsom, I think it was outgoing Governor Jerry Brown that signed it, but effective this year, every publicly held company here in California has to have at least one female member on its board of directors. What the hell is government doing telling a business how many females it should have on its board of directors? Telling a toy store that you must have a gender neutral toy section. What is that? It's not socialism. You haven't taken over the business. It's telling people what to do. That's fascism. Now, this past year and a half has been tough for Americans. Lockdown, school closings, and now the rising cost of everything. It's been an especially hard time for the 30 million American small business owners and the 60 million people they employ. Now, small business faces new burdens being created by their own government, none worse than the tax increases proposed in D.C. of nearly 30% increase on already struggling small businesses. There are also calls to change labor laws to favor union bosses and increase regs. It's not just bad policy what D.C. lawmakers are guilty of, it's bad faith. One group working hard to fight this war against small business, the great folks at Job Creators Network, founded to fight for small business and to defend free enterprise. And they are looking for a few good men and women to build an army of small business advocates across our great country. Their advocacy program will train you up to be a voice for positive change in your community, state, and country. It'll also be a great way to network with like-minded business owners. So, to find out how to join JCN's army of small business owners, go to jobcreatorsnetwork.com. That's jobcreatorsnetwork.com. I mentioned the Lieutenant Governor-elect of Virginia is a black female. Her name is Winsome Sears.
And so let me tell you this. I am not even first-generation American. When I joined the Marine Corps, I was still a Jamaican. But this country had done so much for me, I was willing to die for this country.
The new black face of white supremacy.
And so I say to you, victory indeed. But I say to you, there are some who want to divide us, and we must not let that happen. They would like us to believe we are back in 1963 when my father came. We can live where we want. We can eat where we want. We own the water fountains. We have had a black president elected not once but twice, and here I am, living proof. In case you haven't noticed, I am black, and I have been black all my life. But that's not what this is about.
She's been black all her life, unlike the great Aldersky, the white black face of white supremacy. Sometimes I'm white. Candace Owens was called a white supremacist, so I guess it's technically possible to be black but not be black all your life. Joy Reid over at MSNBC Hee-Haw.
Exit polls showed that which was interesting, that the coronavirus, or that the virus, it was a very
low
was not importance to many of the voters there. It was education, which is code for white parents don't like the idea of teaching about race. And I mean,
white parents don't like the idea of teaching about race. And by the way, the word or the term teaching about race, it's about how black people feel about how white people feel about how they feel about black people. Nobody gives a rip about Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans. It's just black people. And I say again, if white people spent as much time thinking about black people as pundits like Joy Reid think they do, they'd qualify for unemployment.
Exit polls showed that which was interesting, that the coronavirus, or that the virus, it was a very was not importance to many of the voters there. It was education, which is code for white parents don't like the idea of teaching about race. And I mean,
isn't it just kind of amazing how these people just blithely insult white people and call them racist? It's code for white parents don't. You know what white parents want? Maybe they want a good education for their kids. Maybe they want their kids to be focused on reading, writing, and computing at grade level. Maybe they believe all this nonsense is a distraction, especially given the fact, as I've said a million times, race has never been less significant. The percentage of Americans that support interracial marriage, 96%, 94%. And as I said it before, 8% of Americans believe Elvis is still alive, so I'm not sure you can improve on that a whole lot. We're talking about here. People are sick of this. High taxes, high regulations, telling people what to do, telling people their kids can't stay in school in person, telling retailers what to sell in their stores, telling people they can't buy gasoline-powered leaf blowers, gasoline-powered lawnmowers. Sick of it. Absolutely sick of it. Only about 8% put climate change at the top of the agenda. These guys are all about climate change. Now, 3-week quick start, $19.95. That is less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. After that, we're talking about less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. The docs who designed Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, each of which are 100% drug-free to deal with pain from a different metabolic pathway. You got back pain, shoulder, neck, hip, foot, knee pain from exercise, or just dealing with the left, consider ordering the 3-week quick start. Over 70% of those who order it go on to order more. And the reason that they sell it at a discount is to make sure it works for you. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com, or call 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
We have people losing careers and multi-million-dollar jobs because they refuse to take the vaccine that does not 100% prevent you from getting the virus. Breakthrough cases, people with the vaccine who are vaccinated are dying, and yet they say we still need to destroy your life, even if you have natural immunity, even if you have the antibodies. So one example in particular, there's 2 examples that highlight this, I think, rather well. The first is a place that all of you should go for lunch today, especially if you're listening on the West Coast. In-N-Out Burger. In-N-Out Burger is phenomenal. They are a wonderful company. They do a great job. The owners are Christians, and they deserve your support because now in San Francisco's only In-N-Out location, they've said, look, we are refusing to enforce the San Francisco vaccine mandate. We're not going to go ask people, show us your papers. And I'm going to be honest, people are fighting back. But to the level that we are tolerating the show me your papers, show me your medical records to go get a burger in San Francisco, America's fallen in a great regard. Now, San Francisco is its own place. San Francisco is the greatest example of anarcho-tyranny. Anarcho-tyranny, where it's complete anarchy if you want to do drugs on the side of the street, if you want to defecate in a park, that's their idea of freedom. If you want to wear no clothes, you can walk through the streets of San Francisco.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Yes, Larry, it's glad you're back. Thank you, dear Lord. Now, would you please start telling America that $1 trillion is 1,000 billion, or a football field 14 feet high, $100 bills? Bless you. Glad you're back. Carl did a real good job. God bless America.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Yeller. We're talking about what happened last night. It was a bloodbath if you are a Democrat. The Republican won the governorship of the Commonwealth of Virginia. A black female became lieutenant governor. And the New Jersey race is too close to call in a state that is deep, deep blue. Even if the Democrat pulls it out, it is a huge wake-up call for the Democrats. In Minneapolis, on the ballot was a measure to defund the police and replace them with some sort of, I'm not quite sure what they replaced them with. But the people in Minneapolis, not idiots, they know crime's going to go up. Crime has gone up dramatically, and they rejected it. In Buffalo, a mayor who was primaried by a socialist who was backed by AOC is now going to be reelected as a write-in candidate. It's very difficult to get elected as a write-in candidate, and he's just done so. And also the state legislature in Virginia is now being taken over by Republicans, having been run by Democrats for a very long period of time. So it was not a good night if you are a Democrat. Kamala Harris at the rally, McAuliffe rally, said what happens in Virginia will happen in 22 and 2024. Let's hope she's right. And Joe Biden was confident, said that I think we're going to get this. It's going to be close, but I think we're going to get this. And Glenn Youngkin recognized that his opponent did not run on the issues, ran on him having been supported by Trump. We're going to be talking to the editor-in-chief, Alex Marlow of Breitbart, in just a few minutes. We're going to be talking about how Facebook is suppressing conservative content, and they really, really, really dislike Breitbart, and how many people get their news from Facebook. Keep in mind, the Facebook CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, spent $419.5 million of his own money on election officials in swing cities and swing counties in order to drive up the vote for Joe Biden. An analysis of what he did by Molly Hemingway in her book Rig suggests that that money switched the election from Trump to Joe Biden. Also, Facebook is giving people information on how they can enter the country illegally, but I digress. All of that and more in your comments and thoughts about what happened last night in Virginia and in New Jersey and in Minneapolis. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am the great Eldersky.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
If that wasn't clear yesterday, let it be clear today. Why did people hug me? Right? The same question could be asked of the thousands of people who put their arms around me in the course of the last year in posing for pictures. They understood the risk that they were taking. And they thought that it was a minimal risk, which it turns out to have been. So while people that I know lived in their house for over a year and never left, I was hugging people. That is correct. That was the decision to choose life. You have a choice in life, to choose to live or to choose to be scared. And I chose all year and a half, now almost 2 years, to live life. I think it was the correct choice. A lot of people found it to be an admirable choice. But this is what they cover. Prager listed off a cocktail of therapeutics he said had been taken over the course of the pandemic, many of which have not been approved by the FDA. Yes. See, this is what constitutes truth for the Washington Post. The herd-like mentality. If the FDA approves it, then there's nothing to think about. If it doesn't approve it, there is nothing to think about.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
And you and I have talked about this many times. Doctors Without Borders did their own study. This isn't a Fed number. This isn't my number. 31% of women that make their journey get sexually assaulted. We've heard the case how many children die. Already, and I talked to one sheriff on the southwest border in Texas who's already found over 50 dead migrants in his county that were left stranded by the cartels. The cartels mistreat these people. They torture these people that can't pay the smuggling fees. They've killed these people that can't pay smuggling fees. Yeah. We already know that enough opioids came across this border under Biden that over 90,000 fentanyl overdose deaths of our children. So it's the flip side of this illegal immigration is people are dying. Cartels are getting millions of dollars a day, and that has a real cost to it.
And this isn't. I mean, this isn't just a hypothesis. Literally flicking a switch, what this White House has done has exploded the profits for the cartels, correct?
Absolutely. No one celebrated this election more than the cartels because the promises Joe Biden made during the campaign, they knew they were back in business.
And because you have an open border, it's very, very easy for them to game it, to say, okay, you in that caravan of 3,000 people, you cross over there, while 10 miles down the way, you're going to be flooding in the fentanyl and we'll be running, right?
Exactly.
This is great for them.
And this isn't, Tom, listen to what the DEA is saying. Listen to what the U.S. Marshal, every law enforcement agency out there will tell you open borders creates more crime in our communities. So people, I get asked all the time, or I get comments all the time that President Trump's policy is inhumane. First of all, no, they weren't, not compared to Joe Biden's policies.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Larry Sabato from the Virginia Center of Politics, and he said, for all the talk about the 2022 midterms, really what we need to be focused on is a 2021 midterm. That occurs November 2nd in Virginia.
Now, what occurs to me that is a great tell is President Biden is not coming to help out Terry McAuliffe. They're bringing in former President Obama to try and generate some enthusiasm without setting you up one way or the other. How do you cover critical race theory? Because it's become the central issue in Virginia. What do you say about it?
Well, critical race theory has become the proxy for the school district fight in Virginia and who should control what children are taught. And you have some of the largest and most liberal school districts in the country in Virginia. You also have some of the more conservative school districts in Virginia. And what I thought was key, and obviously you've played this soundbite a lot, is the Youngkin-McAuliffe debate, which goes to show you why real debates and real news, especially in politics, are important and actually sometimes elicit the most interesting things, where Terry McAuliffe essentially said that parents should not have a say in what their children are taught, whether it relates to critical race theory, whether it relates to gender studies, whether it relates to transsexual issues, whatever it is, Terry McAuliffe thinks the school boards and the teachers' unions know better. That's a perfectly legitimate political argument. What was interesting is he actually said the quiet part out loud. He said the thing that Democrats rarely, if ever, admit, which is they don't want parents' input if it disagrees with their worldview, and the parents shouldn't really have a say. Once he said that, and I think you would acknowledge, that's really when the race changed.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Do you realize that Terry McAuliffe is still going around saying that Stacey Abrams had the election in Georgia stolen from her? I thought you weren't allowed to question the outcome of the election.
And he's running down the democracy, saying their elections are not fair.
The next day.
She would be the governor of Georgia today had the governor of Georgia not disenfranchised 1.4 million Georgia voters before the election. That's what happened to Stacey Abrams. They took the votes away.
Uh-oh. Hey, YouTube, you better ban me, because I just played a clip of Democrat Terry McAuliffe claiming that Stacey Abrams had the election stolen from her. That's election misinformation. If Virginia elects Terry McAuliffe next week, you'll deserve every bit of the misery you're going to get.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Just in, the Democrat governor of New Jersey, Murphy, has, according to the Associated Press, won his bid for re-election, narrowly defeating his Republican rival. I watched the Republican last night, Chitterelli, give a victory speech, and I said, whoa, wait a second. They haven't counted the absentee ballots yet. And there were a lot of votes yet to come in democratically strong areas, and so it might have been a little premature. Apparently it was, because the Democrat governor, Murphy, has now been determined to be the winner, at least according to the Associated Press. We're going to be talking to the editor-in-chief of Breitbart, Alex Marlow, who recently said that Congress ought to take a look at how Breitbart and other conservative outlets are suppressed by Facebook.
Tucker, there's literally billions of Facebook pages, and this one page, for whatever reason, triggers the left at such an unbelievable degree that they have to whine to their bosses to try to get us censored. Thankfully, it hasn't totally worked yet, but every Republican member of Congress should take note of this. This came before the 2020 election, Tucker. All their criticism of us were before 2020. These change votes and change minds.
Well, having that gentleman in studio in just a few minutes. Again, you can watch the interview by going to youtube.com/The Larry Elder Show Radio. The winner last night of the lieutenant governor race is a black female. Her name is Winsome Sears. And this afternoon, she was interviewed by Fox News.
Tell me how you felt this morning when you woke up.
Tired. Literally, because I had only slept for maybe 2 hours, and here comes the media wanting to talk about the race, and I'm thinking, it feels like I'm campaigning all over again. I was losing my voice, waking up at 4 or 5 o'clock every morning and go, 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 go.
Yeah.
So where I thought I'd be able to sleep in, no, sir.
No, sir, indeed. So, obviously there's a lot of talk. You heard perhaps in the tease before our segment that you are the first woman of color, lieutenant governor of Virginia. And I thought it was very interesting last night when you just said, I'm black. If you haven't noticed, I think were your words. And then you said, but it's not about that. What did you mean by that?
Because we are framing too many issues in terms of race, and it just continues to divide us, and unfortunately politicians are using it as a tool because of the things that have happened to us historically to advance, I would think, their nefarious purposes. And so if we stop just looking at race and just looking at people, because you see, I'm destroying all the narratives about race. Look at me. Look at me. I am a heartbeat away from the governorship in case anything happens to the governor. And how are you going to tell me then I'm a victim? And I didn't do anything special to get here except stay in school and study. I took advantage of the opportunities. They're available here in America. I wasn't born here. This is not my culture, not my country, but it allowed me, America allowed me to come and do for myself and for my family. And I remember when I was wanting to go to college, I had 3 children under 5. My husband took a lower paying job so he could stay home because he already had his degree. And I put one of my children on the back of a bicycle so that I could get to college. So no one can say to me, I don't know what it is to be poor. You're looking at the American dream. So we can do better, and it's not 1963 when my father came at the height of the civil rights movement, 17 days before Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech. We're better than that. We're always going to have problems. I understand that. I'm not saying we're perfect, but you can see those people at the border right now trying to get in. They're dying to get in because they know if they can put a foot on American soil, the trajectory of their lives will change just as it did for my father.
Here's what Joy Reid said last night, and I want to just get a quick response from you, if I can, over on MSNBC about the Youngkin win and your win. Watch this.
Do we have to?
You have to be willing to vocalize that these Republicans are dangerous, that this isn't a party that's just another political party that disagrees with us on tax policy, that at this point, they're dangerous. They're dangerous to our national security because stoking that kind of soft white nationalism eventually leads to the hardcore stuff.
Soaking that kind of soft white nationalism eventually leads to the hardcore stuff. Speaking about this black female who just became Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, which, by the way, was one of the states of the Confederacy. And here's what Lieutenant Governor-elect Winsome Sears said in response to that clip.
Your reaction to that, Ms. Sears?
I wish Joy Reid would invite me on her show. Let's see if she's woman enough to do that. I'd go in a heartbeat and we have a real discussion without Joy speaking about me behind my back, if you will. She talks about white supremacy. Does she know that I ran against a white supremacist? I mean, Joy, come on, get your facts straight and then come talk to me.
If she's woman enough, yikes, throwing down. Now, let's give a little love to Van Jones, because Van Jones apparently has evolved a little bit. Again, here's what he said the night that Donald Trump won back in November 2016.
I mean, we've talked about everything but race tonight. We've talked about income. We've talked about class. We've talked about region. We haven't talked about race. This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country.
Okay, that's what he said November 2016. Here's what he said last night, his analysis of how the Republicans pulled this off. Listen to this.
There's something happening out here. It could be just anti-incumbent. I think that's a part of it. But I think that there's something else that's happening.
No race card?
I think that the Democrats are coming across in ways that we don't recognize.
Now, notice how he said, we don't recognize.
That are annoying and offensive and seem out of touch in ways that I don't think show up in our feeds. When we're looking at our kind of echo chamber.
Our kind of echo chamber, speaking to all these Democrats.
And I think that this is a message here.
Wow. He didn't whip out the race card. Unfortunately, over at The View, Whoopi Goldberg, they're lynching people, she says. I assume she's referring to the white supremacists.
Civil War, and I'm not saying it's perfect.
No, they haven't.
What do you mean they haven't?
They have. Listen, when you have a country or a state, let's talk about a state where somebody can be hung from a tree.
When you have a state where somebody can be hung from a tree, you talking about today?
And it's okay.
That's not okay.
Well, it was okay. It was okay in the South. People did it all the time. People.
When's the last time somebody's been lynched in America?
Would run you
because of race. 1961?
Down. And not that long ago.
Not that long ago.
Still lynchings.
They're lynching people. I mean, I love having this conversation because I feel like it's important. You know, when my grandpa came back from World War I, he still had to step off the sidewalk.
That makes
to let somebody. It should. We need more people to feel like that, so we can get to the place that everybody thought we were with race and all the conversations. But America has had her reckoning. It continues to happen because unless we can say this is what the country was like, this is what we don't want to be anymore. We have to teach the little ones. Respect people, because you'll be around people, you'll see people, you'll hear people say things that won't make sense to you. This is what happens in the country because we're not past that.
We're not past lynchings? Who knew? Alex Marlowe in studio. I'm Larry Elder.
Judge Thomas, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do.
I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
57 Muslim states in the world, 1 Jewish state.
Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
There's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
How 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans.
Go to salemnow.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
This White House has absolutely no idea what is happening in America. It is completely divorced from reality, devoid of any understanding. And you know, they always say that the organization reflects the leader. Well, they've got a feckless, pathetic, completely out to lunch leader, and that has completely permeated this White House, if you can call it that.
So at this point, it's hard to imagine how much worse the situation could get. In that case, the question I always return to, and you are a guy who's worked on so many campaigns, not just in the White House, your political sense is fine-tuned. Is there not a point, if you look at the cargo ships off LA, you look at the 2 million illegal aliens, you look at the 4 million people who resigned from their jobs last year, you look at the inflation, you look at everything to do with national security, with Afghanistan. Is there no point at which Biden becomes an albatross around the neck of the Democrats, or are they just too afraid to have the cackler in the Oval?
It's happened already. Look at Virginia.
Yeah.
Terry McAuliffe is losing to Youngkin in a race where Biden won by 10 points.
But hang on, Boris.
Okay?
Boris, it's not just that, Youngkin has a shot. Did you ever think that Terry McAuliffe would actually publicly state that the Democrat president is the reason that he might lose Virginia?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Larry, I'm sad to welcome you back because I was hoping you'd be the governor.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Again, you can watch the show on YouTube.com/The Larry Elder Show Radio. My in-studio guest, Steers, one of the top news sites in the country, read by 20 million unique visitors a month. Ranks among the most engaged Facebook publishers in the world. We're going to talk about Facebook and the treatment of my next guest in just a second. His organization, Breitbart News, produces 23 hours of original radio programming. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you just started something today, did you not?
On Monday.
Breitbart Daily Podcast with Alex Marlowe. And his book is called Breaking the News, Exposing the Establishment Media's Hidden Deals and Secret Corruption. It was a New York Times bestseller. And I love his little bio I have here. A native of L.A., interned with a gentleman named Larry Elder. Went to UC Berkeley and somehow survived that without becoming a member of the left. Became a member of the College Republican, started his own blog and podcast. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you were the first employee of Breitbart News. Please welcome to the program, Breitbart News Editor-in-Chief, Alex Marlow.
Larry, it is such a pleasure to be on with you. It's such a pleasure to be on with you. And I am also sad to welcome you back. But it is, we're also proud of you, lifelong Eldorados. I've been Eldorado for north of 20 years now, which is unbelievable because I'm only 35. But it is so great to be back in the studio with you. And I appreciate all the kind words in the introduction.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for that. Let's talk about, first of all, Facebook. I think a lot of people over a certain age do not understand the power of Facebook and the large percentage of people that get their news from the news feed in Facebook. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, so Facebook has got a thing called the news feed, which is this is something that they curate. So this is what they deem is the most important news stories of the day, and people click on it and it just says news, and you click, wow, it sounds good. I'm on Facebook. I like news, but it's really curated. It's curated by Silicon Valley Facebook type employees. A lot of them are based in Washington, and when you say
curated, you mean?
It means that they pick and choose. They pick and choose the winners and losers. And it's not necessarily based on the content that's most popular with their audience. It's based off of what the Facebook news team deems is the most important. And what we've learned is they're actually choosing content that is not the most popular. They're choosing content that is from the establishment media, left-wing, typical liberal bias stuff. And now we've got data to back it up.
I got the impression that the news feed was tailored to the user, the kinds of things the users wanted to know about. That's not true?
So there's two things, and it's not true in either of the two things. So there is the news that you might see in your feed where people just post a link, your friends, maybe if they follow your page or if they follow the Breitbart page, that's stuff that you might see, and that stuff is something that is somewhat, there's an algorithm, it's very mysterious, and the algorithm decides what goes in and how prominently it's featured and how quickly it scrolls, and there's a virality element to it. So the more comments, the more shares, the more likely it is to pop up and stick in your feed. All this they're very cagey about this. They don't explain it. And they're clearly discriminating against certain news outlets in that feed. But then there's a separate tab called the News tab, and this is almost like their version of a front page, like a Drudge Report front page or a FoxNews.com or even a Breitbart.com front page. And they try to choose news stories from across the news spectrum, but we've noticed a massive concentration in establishment CNN-type stories.
Now, would this be the same if I went on my news feed as a conservative, as somebody that doesn't read the New York Times, LA Times, except for purposes of criticizing them? I would have the same news feed as a left-wing person?
Yeah, the news tab is largely going to be exactly the same, pretty much, for person to person. So your feed, for the Larry Elder feed, so if you're just logging in as yourself or on your page for your show, then that is going to be something that will be somewhat tailored to you, though again, they're tricky with that as well. But the news tab is something that they put out. These are the biggest stories that's going on, and they're favoring the establishment media.
So explain to me now I understand the majority of adults now get their primary source from the news feed you just now talked about.
I don't know if it's that much, but I know that it is a massive percentage. And in your intro, you nailed something that's so essential, which is that if you are controlling the news, if you're controlling the information that people read, you're controlling hearts and minds. And in my opinion, you're controlling the vote. Mm-hmm. Because how else are you going to get your information? It's either going to be at your kitchen table or it's going to be what you share online. I mean, that's what people are. If you don't have access to the Hunter Biden scoops about his laptop from hell, that Twitter censored and called it Russian disinformation. It was neither Russian nor disinformation. If you don't get access to that information, then you don't have a full slate of ideas to choose from when you're going to pick the vote. And so this is where they are, I believe, interfering in our elections with this, because they are choosing what news is most important based on their own personal preferences and giving it to you, and essentially, I think, moving people in a direction that is more establishment, more pro-corporatist, etc.
Alex Marlow is my guest in studio. He is the editor-in-chief of Breitbart. Now, what about this narrative argument that but for Facebook, Donald Trump would not have been elected? Is that true or false?
I think that's part of why they're like this now. Mm-hmm. So one thing that we saw is we saw these studies come out right after the 2016 election, some of them backed by Harvard and MIT and pretty sophisticated people, quoted extensively in the New York Times Magazine, and they tracked that that Breitbart was arguably the biggest website on Facebook in the 2016 election. It was us, the Huffington Post, the New York Times. So those are the top three, depending on how you calculate it. And this was seen as a total outrage to people who are backed by billionaires, backed by gigantic multinational conglomerates, that they saw this as an outrage, that we are the ones who control the information. We have buddies at Facebook. We're the same people. And how are these upstarts with a newsroom of 100 people, largely, in their living rooms and basements, how are they kicking our butts so bad? And so they said, well, we're not going to allow for that to happen anymore. So in 2018, they switched the algorithm to drop Breitbart out of the top 10 Facebook publishers and into, maybe 2025, and to boost CNN, up to number one, stuff like that. And so they had to manipulate it in that sense, but that wasn't even enough because the left, as you know, Larry, better than anyone, they're never satisfied. You can never appease them. They always want more territory. And they've kept chipping away solidly since those studies came out in early 2018.
When they changed the algorithm to hurt you, could you sense it? Did you know it? Could you feel it?
Immediately, because our traffic dropped overnight. And the stuff, this is one thing it's a form of cheating in that part of our business, not the majority of our business, but a good chunk of it is developing our social following. It's crucial for us to get the word out. And we're incredibly popular on these websites. People love our content. They love engaging with it. And so we focus on it. We have a unit that's dedicated specifically to this type of content. And then overnight, they decide that investment, that time that we put in, that money that we put in is no longer valid. And they just set us back and they set CNN forward. And what's more, Larry, they're actually paying these establishment outlets. They're paying them. They have multiple tiers. They have the top tier where they are literally paying news outlets, typically these giant conglomerates. Then they have a second tier where they might incorporate your content, like Breitbart, but they won't pay you. And then they have a third tier, which is they will not pay you at all or incorporate your content at all. And we're trying to avoid that, and that's where the left wants us right now.
We come back, I want to ask you whether or not they take a financial hit by doing that to you. Do they lose money by doing that to you? And are they doing that to other conservative outlets? And if so, how so? And what do you think should be done about it? 888-971-SAGE. My guest in studio is Alex Marlow. He is the editor-in-chief of Breitbart. Do not leave town.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
We have people losing careers in multi-million-dollar jobs because they refuse to take the vaccine that does not 100% prevent you from getting the virus. Breakthrough cases, people with the vaccine who are vaccinated are dying, and yet they say, we still need to destroy your life, even if you have natural immunity, even if you have the antibodies. So one example in particular, there's two examples that highlight this, I think, rather well. The first is a place that all of you should go for lunch today, especially if you're listening on the West Coast. In-N-Out Burger. In-N-Out Burger is phenomenal. They are a wonderful company. They do a great job. The owners are Christians. And they deserve your support because now in San Francisco's only In-N-Out location, they've said, look, we are refusing to enforce the San Francisco vaccine mandate. We're not going to go ask people, show us your papers. And I'm going to be honest, people are fighting back. But to the level that we are tolerating the show me your papers, show me your medical records to go get a burger in San Francisco, America's fallen in a great regard. Now, San Francisco's its own place. San Francisco is the greatest example of anarcho-tyranny. Anarcho-tyranny, where it's complete anarchy. If you want to do drugs on the side of the street, if you want to defecate in a park, that's their idea of freedom. If you want to wear no clothes, you can walk through the streets of San Francisco.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Religion It's not just about saying I have a right in this country to not have the government not allow me to go to church, but also that the government cannot compel me to participate in any sort of event, including a vaccine, by the way, that goes against my sincerely held religious beliefs. And so it should just be a matter of course that if you have a conscious objection, then you can say, I, as a Christian, as a Muslim, as a Jew, as any sort of religion, I mean, this covers all religions, by the way, all faiths, all sincerely held beliefs, you should be able to say, I decline to be coerced into participation. But what we're seeing is that a lot of employers are not only requiring a lot of information for people to say, well, you have to justify your religious exemption. We're also seeing that they want this so-called, what they're calling an interactive process. That's basically an interrogation. I have clients right now that they have filed for a religious exemption on the basis of we're pro-life, that's what the Bible teaches, and I cannot take this vaccine. And the Human Resources Department, from the legal counsel of these employers, want to sit down and basically interrogate them and say, is this really a sincerely held religious belief? And they're using this as a pretext to try to deny religious exemptions. It's absurd, and I hope that when there are more lawsuits filed, like just today, in Texas, United Airlines was forbidden from enforcing their vaccine mandate against employees who are claiming a religious exemption. So we're already seeing that the courts are protecting this, but hopefully it'll be more than just Texas.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Larry, when Trump ran, Biden said they was going to put you all back in chains. Well, he released a lot of people from chains with the freedom to go to work, support themselves. Since Biden took over, he's put a lot of people back on the welfare chain, the unemployment chain, the food stamp chain, and now he's trying to put everybody on this 19 chain, COVID-19 chain. They have to get a thing. If they don't get it, they're going to be on this welfare chain again.
He's going to let the big banks once again write their own rules. Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
They're lynching people. They're lynching people.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. We're ready to launch something big. And I want you to be part of it. If you like listening to my show, you will love watching it also on SalemNewsChannel.com or the app with the same name. Load it on the Apple or Android store or watch us on Roku. Just type Salem News Channel into the search bar. Come check us out. We are the antidote to mainstream media. Soon we'll be adding new TV-only hours. This is only going to get bigger and better. Thank you for all you're doing to make this thing successful. We are on a mission, and you are a huge part of it. My in-studio guest, Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart. Alex, are they doing this to other conservative outlets?
Yeah, absolutely. So the data we saw, and we'd known internally that this was happening, and we'd screamed it from the rafters, but it's hard to know without quantifiable data. But the Wall Street Journal put out an article that I believe was designed to sort of be a hit piece on Breitbart, but it turned out to reveal that Facebook had diminished our traffic from Facebook by 20%. And in the meantime, they're boosting other people's traffic just simply by changing their algorithms to take away the content their own users want. Just remember that they were engaging with Breitbart's content, and they had to change the algorithm to diminish us. And it wasn't just us. It was the Washington Times. It was other conservative outlets, Media Research Center, Newsbusters. All these places saw decreases in traffic. Breitbart's was, of course, the most, which makes sense because we're regarded as the biggest threat to the establishment for whatever reason, which I'm quite proud of. But that is something that is happening across the board, is across the whole conservative ecosystem.
Now, I post stuff on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook all the time. Many of the articles, for example, have to do with skepticism about whether or not there ought to be mandated for vaccines, mandates for face masks. When I post something there, am I getting shafted as well?
Almost certainly, particularly on the issues of COVID-19 and climate change. There's and
the election of 2020.
And the election, good call. These are things where any divergence from the orthodoxy is immediately penalized, scrutinized by fact checkers, diminished in the algorithms. algorithms, and sometimes they put a hold on it so that things can't catch fire. They manipulate the algorithms based on search terms. I mean, we've noticed a pattern that if you use the term communist China, it doesn't do as well on Facebook than if you just use the term China. Can you imagine that, Larry? Do you think Mark Zuckerberg, you might remember his famous smog run where he was jogging through Tiananmen Square and it was completely thick fog? Do you think he might have ambitions to get into the Chinese market one day? He's playing his cards very carefully and trying to satisfy a lot of people. And what's happening is he's not satisfying anyone.
My in-studio guest, editor-in-chief of Breitbart, Alex Marlow. Alex, I'm active on Twitter. When I ran for governor, I increased my Twitter followers by about 20,000. The moment I stopped, it went down about 15,000. And now, since I've been off the campaign trail, and we ended it on September the 14th, it goes up and down about 100. And then down 100, up 100, down 100, up 100. I've never been more popular. I've never been more well-known, not only in the country but in the world, yet I'm not growing on Twitter. What's going on?
Yeah, this is what's happening is probably, and this is a new tactic that they've used, is sort of a version of shadow banning. Shadow banning is when you post content, you think you posted content, and people go directly to twitter.com/Larry Elder, whatever your handle is. Then they'll see your content there, but in their feed, it won't show up, which means you're not going to get retweets, you're not going to get likes, and you're not going to get the quote tweets that will lead to additional followers. So it keeps you in a bubble. We're under the impression at Breitbart that basically our content is only seen by people who are already following us. It's almost impossible to get our content unless you're already following Breitbart. And I know this personally, my Twitter followers are down over the last year. It discourages people like us from using the mediums and to allow them to be left-wing echo chambers.
Why, Alex, isn't there a powerful conservative Facebook, a powerful conservative Twitter, a powerful conservative IG?
Yeah, it's an important question, and there's two answers, or maybe 2.5 answers to it. The first answer is that I don't think there's been enough investment from conservative billionaires. I think they focused very much on politicians. They focused on, which is still good. We need the best politicians possible, but we need to understand that media and tech are what matter most in terms of changing hearts and minds. I think, Larry, you know this better than anyone as a true pioneer in the industry. And this is something that has not, the investment capital has not been there. It needs to get there. We're starting to see it, efforts like Parler and Rumble, but particularly with Parler, and I'm more optimistic about Rumble so far, it does turn into a bit of a ghetto. It turns into a bit of a only conservatives are here, and it becomes its own bubble, which is no one's really solved that because we're willing to play on the left's playground. We're willing to be on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, even though we know it's controlled by left-wing globalists. But they're not willing to necessarily come and play with us in our sandbox, and that does limit the reach.
Does it intrigue you at all that all these people are left-wing? Zuckerberg's left-wing, Jack Dorsey's left-wing. Wouldn't you think it would be the luck of the draw that one of these guys that started one of these platforms would think the way you and I think?
You would think that someone would see the innate business in opportunity there, that there's, look at Virginia. Virginia's a blue state that just elected a slate of Republicans. I mean, there's clearly people who don't like the woke agenda right now, and those people have a lot of money, and they want to spend it, and they vote with their dollars, and those are the type of people that you would think would have more enfranchisement in Silicon Valley, but they don't.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. My in-studio guest, Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart. What do we do about it? We come back. I'm supposed to have done data bread.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
To hear the White House press secretary blame Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott and other Republican governors for playing politics by trying to preserve jobs, not let people get fired over the vaccine mandate. What's the political gain for a governor to stand up to a tyrannical machine and say, you're not going to fire people because they don't want to put a medicine in their arm? You can't try to draw that line in the sand and say, well, the government shouldn't do it, but businesses can. We're either going to fire people over a personal medical decision or we're not. You're splitting hairs when you say, well, now the government, Gary Kelly flat out said, we don't want to do this at Southwest Airlines. He knows that this is a work stoppage. What's happened in Southwest, it isn't weather. They're not having any computer glitches. They got people working who aren't going to show up, and they're going to try to send Southwest a message. And Gary Kelly, the CEO of Southwest, admitted it by saying, we don't want this. Biden's making us do it. The government's making us do it. These zealots in charge, the kind of tyrannical governors we saw putting lines in the Home Depot, and you can go to the garden section, but you can't go to the towel section, and all this crap. Put a mask on to walk to your table and take the mask off when you sit at the table. Like you can't spread COVID at the table, but you can when you're walking to the men's room. Are you kidding me? Would you stop it? And worst of all, forcing people to take a vaccine or get fired.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
57 Muslim states in the world, one Jewish state.
Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
There's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
How 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans.
Go to salemnow.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Vaccine mandate for city workers taking effect, and thousands of frontline workers defiant, staying home instead of getting vaccinated. 18 fire companies out of service because of sick calls.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Vaccinated or not, everybody can benefit from a stronger immune system. Immunity Armor Gold's 9 key ingredients work together as a force multiplier that helps your body build a stronger immune system. If you learned anything over the past 2 years, it's that people with stronger immune systems have more favorable outcomes when disease strikes, period. Taking Immunity Armor Gold helped sustain my energy and maintain my health while I was tirelessly campaigning. Other users also say better sleep quality, healthier blood pressure levels, even improved hair growth, particularly among women over 50. Made right here in the country, Immunity Armor Gold is GMO, gluten, and allergen-free, has no stimulants, artificial sweeteners, or colors, and the best part is there are no pills to swallow because we made it in a powdered form that mixes with water. Just go to immunityarmorgold.com and use promo code Larry10 to get 10% off. That's immunityarmorgold.com, promo code Larry10. Alex Marlowe is in my in-studio guest. He is the editor-in-chief of Breitbart. Alex, what is your position on vaccine mandates? Have you been vaccinated?
I have, and this has been, it's a great question because I think I've got a unique take on it, which is that, so my wife was a frontline doctor, and so I have a family that's been in the healthcare industry, basically every corner of it. So I've been getting information far in front of the media throughout the whole pandemic, and I think this is why Breitbart's been very credible on this issue. And I concluded over a long period of time, maybe 9 or 10 months, it was worth it for me to get it for a number of reasons. But it was not an easy call. It was not something I was excited to do. And one of the reasons I wasn't excited to do it is because the salespeople are so horrible. Having Joe Biden and Anthony Fauci be the primary salespeople, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, for this vaccine has been the stupidest idea for people who want to get people vaccinated, to the point where I'm starting to think maybe there's something else going on. Why do they keep putting these people who couldn't sell a bucket of water to a Trump supporter if he was on fire? Like, why are these the primary spokespeople for the vaccine? It's making people unnecessarily skeptical of something that I think has been a minor miracle. I think the mandates, of course, are appalling. I think that the masks have been basically useless, with very few exceptions. The fact that children are masked up, but the CNN staff is not, is insane to me, and yet that's the way it is. But we've lost a lot of faith in the scientific community because of this issue. But by and large, the vaccines are pretty good.
Vaccines for kids age 5 to 11?
Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, because there is no evidence that they're good vectors of the virus, and that's always been the case. And I think that the more we talk about that stuff, I think that makes a potentially vulnerable conservative American who might be on the fence much less likely to get the vaccine. And we're talking about the total wrong stuff now.
Natural immunity.
Natural immunity is probably going to be significantly stronger than the vaccine. So if you've had, this is another thing that makes the mandates absurd, Larry, is that if you've been infected recently or at all, I see no evidence you need a vaccine. And the doctors I talk to say the exact same thing.
So when you have posted stuff like that on Breitbart, you're punished by Facebook.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Any skepticism on the vaccine at all has to be worded so precisely. And I have to approve all medical stories on Breitbart myself. And one of the things that makes us special is we put out a lot of content. The quantity is one of our values at Breitbart. And I have to approve all the coronavirus stories personally because every single word must be combed over with a fine-tooth comb. I've had to consult outside doctors throughout the pandemic to make sure we get everything right. We want to get everything right, but part of the extra scrutiny is that there is a narrative, an agenda with these vaccines coming from the Facebook crowd.
What about your posts about the 2020 election? We all know all sorts of irregularities, anomalies, shenanigans took place. What about your posts there? How careful do you have to be about posting anything about the 2020 election?
Every bit. You really are touching on all of the toughest things in my job these days, because that's another one where we have to make deep calculations on whether the juice is worth the squeeze. Because if we're raising legitimate concerns, and there are many legitimate concerns about the 2020 election, they all get flagged and lumped in with some of the more ridiculous ones, like the Dominion Energy, or I'm sorry, the Dominion Energy is a Virginia company. The Dominion voting systems, that didn't turn out to be anything. I looked into that in my book. There was nothing there, really.
I looked into it too. Yeah.
And it wasn't there. It wasn't what a lot of people thought it was. But there were legitimate concerns that regarding the rules that were changed at the last minute, ostensibly but unnecessarily because of the coronavirus, that were probably not constitutional given the state's constitutions, that those things might have made a lot of ballots illegitimate, not to mention the some of these improprieties with the vote by mail. There's always more cheating that takes place. There are legitimate election integrity concerns, but sadly, that wasn't the narrative coming out of 2020. It was on the crazy stuff like Dominion.
Is there any reason for me to question the legitimacy of my election, of the race that I ran?
It's a good question for your race. Just from this is purely a hot take, and I haven't scrutinized your race in particular. I do think that there's the media manipulation, the media targeting you, and the Democrat machine and how powerful it is in California is probably the reason why things went the way they went for you. And that is something that is almost scarier in a lot of ways, because you are such a strong candidate, especially relative to Gavin Newsom, and there was so much momentum on your side that the Democrats were able to mobilize it that way is just still stunning and just mind-blowing to watch that from afar. And it is, the smears on you were ridiculous, and I even got roped into it in a couple times with some of the more heinous people at the LA Times, and my heart goes out to you, by the way, for that.
Well, you've never been called the black face of white supremacy.
I haven't, but that is an all-timer. I mean, that is an instant media classic, Larry. Like, that will go down for decades. People will mention that.
What do you do about what Facebook is doing? What can we do about what Facebook is doing, Twitter is doing, Google is doing?
Well, first of all, I'm biased, but I know that you'll appreciate this. Words matter. Talking about it is the first thing, getting the word out, telling your friends and family members, not shying away from colleagues, from family members who might not be in your side to explain this stuff to them. It starts there. Second of all, you can't elect Democrats. I'm always mixed on the Republican Party. I know you are too, as a former libertarian back when I worked for you.
Still am a small L libertarian.
Exactly. But it's still, you can't put Democrats in there because they're wrong on every one of these issues every time. And then next up is we have to start developing our own stuff. And I do believe that there's a role for breaking up some of these companies when they get too big. And unfortunately, the government's the last resort, but they're just monopolizing information. And now they're censoring facts and promoting what I believe are falsehoods.
Is there any prominent person on the left who's concerned about this, who says, I don't like a Breitbart, I don't like their point of view, I don't like what Donald Trump has done about this, that, and the other, but my goodness, what Facebook and these other platforms are doing is unconscionable. Is there anybody on the left saying that?
If you pin them down, maybe, but there's very few, and then they immediately get toxified by the left-wing establishment, like the Glenn Greenwalds of the world have been pretty good on this stuff. Even Bernie Sanders, if you pinned him down, would say he doesn't like that Trump was thrown off of social media, but he's not going to make that his cause. He's just going to go back and hide.
My in-studio guest is Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart. He's agreed to stick around for our last segment. I appreciate that, Alex. Now, have you ordered the 3-week quick start? Relief factor, only $19.95. That is less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. After that, then we're talking about less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day to stay out of pain. Over 70% of those who order the 3-week quick start go on to order more. Sean, what is Zach eating? Now, if you've got back pain, shoulder, neck, hip, foot, knee pain from exercise, or just getting older, consider ordering the 3-week quick start. They lose money on every packet until 4 or 5 months after you order it to make sure that it works for you. Again, less than a cost of a cup of coffee a day after that to stay out of pain. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com. 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Do you realize that Terry McAuliffe is still going around saying that Stacey Abrams had the election in Georgia stolen from her? I thought you weren't allowed to question the outcome of the election.
And he's running down the democracy, saying that our elections are not fair.
The next day.
She would be the governor of Georgia today had the governor of Georgia not disenfranchised 1.4 million Georgia voters before the election. That's what happened to Stacey Abrams. They took the votes away.
Uh-oh. Hey, YouTube, you better ban me, because I just played a clip of Democrat Terry McAuliffe claiming that Stacey Abrams had the election stolen from her. That's election misinformation. If Virginia elects Terry McAuliffe next week, you'll deserve every bit of the misery you're going to get.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
57 Muslim states in the world, 1 Jewish state.
Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
There's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
How 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans.
Go to salemnow.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. 971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. My in-studio guest, Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart. I have heard that postal workers were exempt from the mandate.
Yeah, that was something. I'm not up on where we're at now, but remember, we just got the mandate like 2 days ago. There wasn't a real mandate. It was all trying to coach corporate America to enforce the mandates, which they've largely done. And this answers one of your questions about why Facebook and why some of these corporations continue to discriminate against conservatives and discriminate now against the unvaccinated. It's because they want to make sure that the people who are in power in our governments and our bureaucracies protect them and protect their business interests. And that's more important to them than making sure that you and I are happy with their products. What's more important to them is that they're protected from government regulators and the government bureaucracies. That's the math. That's the missing piece.
Don't Don't these social media platforms, Alex, lose money by suppressing content like yours?
I don't think they do because of those protections. I think they're not a threat. Joe Biden is not a threat to them. Donald Trump is. You would have been a threat to them, Larry, if you kept rising in the political scene. And that's why they don't like you. And that's is because you are potentially could upend their apple cart.
To what degree did Facebook play in the elections in Virginia and in New Jersey? Facebook on the other social media platforms.
It's hard to know. I'm sure they weren't helpful to the Virginia Republicans. I mean, Terry McAuliffe ran a really uniquely horrible campaign. He was a uniquely horrible candidate, and and Glenn Youngkin did a very good job as well. So as well as the down ticket races, it's hard to know what the factor was there. But I'll tell you, when it's not close, they can't cheat, and that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. It strikes me that when somebody wins that closely the way Youngkin did, he did it not only against his opponent, not only against the media, but also against Facebook.
Every time. Because, again, I'm a total believer in that whoever controls the information controls the electorate. And our lives are going to be much more difficult throughout the next few years until Republicans are able to at least put these big tech companies on notice. They're going to continue to suppress our content. Google's the worst of them all, by the way. We haven't even touched on them at all today. They're the most oppressive of conservative content.
Did you ever think that these platforms would get this powerful?
It's hard to imagine anything being this powerful. It's the most powerful entity other than maybe the U.S. government, maybe in the history of the world. We don't know who any of them are, aside from 5 people who show up at Congress and take softball questions.
My guest has been Alex Marlow. He is editor-in-chief of Breitbart News. His book is called Breaking the News, Exposing the Establishment Media's Hidden Deals and Secret Corruption. New York Times bestseller, a must-read. We have it up on LarryElder.com. Alex, thank you so much for coming in.
Larry, thanks for all you do.
You're the man.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
How buoyed are you that Americans are finally waking up, JD?
Look, I'm very excited about what I'm seeing. Certainly in Virginia, but also in Ohio. It feels like there's a real grassroots movement brewing on the conservative movement right now. And it's, just like in times past, it's not just the politicos, it's not just the establishment folks. Sometimes not even people who are that political, but they're just very fired up about what their kids are teaching. Their kids are coming home crying, upset because they're being told that they're a bad person depending on the color of their skin, and they're just fed up about it. And I think it may very well take down Terry McAuliffe, but I certainly think it is the beginning of a movement all across this country that's going to take down a lot of Democrats all over the nation.
In the break, we were talking to my team here, and somebody said, "Well, it's neck and neck, and if Glenn loses by 3 points, that's a big deal in any other normal election." And here's the reaction I have, JD. There is no such thing as a normal election after 2016. Do we have any faith that there will be a normal election? Talk to us about the recent breaking news about Facebook and the censorship of conservatives. You've written a piece about it. How do we get back to quote unquote normal, JD?
Oh man, we got a lot of work to do. Facebook did 2 things basically in the 2020 election, one of which we've known about for a while. They basically censored information that was negative about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. They promoted information that was negative about Donald Trump. And I really believe that swung the election in a really important way.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
And last spring, the left, liberal, progressive leaders wouldn't open the schools when we saw schools open across the country and Virginia's kids were falling behind. And then all of a sudden they got to see during this pandemic what was being taught to their children and said, wait a minute, you're teaching my children what to think? No. You got to teach my kids how to think. That's my goal. It's my right to tell my kids and discuss at dinner tables what we think as a family. And then all of a sudden, here we have the schools again. I had parents yesterday walking up, I got to get my kids back in school, please. They're being sent home for no reason. At the end of the day, Hugh, this is fundamentally about parents' rights. And Terry McAuliffe doesn't believe that parents should have any. And It's not about anything else. They're going to conflate this issue with a whole bunch of other topics because it's all they've got. And let me just be really clear. Parents have a fundamental right to be engaged in their kids' education, and Terry McAuliffe doesn't believe so.
What do you do in the final days, with the weekend ahead of you, with the last sprint ahead of you?
Well, we're on day 5 of a 10-day bus tour, and it is so much fun, Hugh. First of all, the crowds are huge, and today we're in Roanoke, and we travel around Roanoke. We end up in Christiansburg tonight. The crowds are huge, and I'm meeting with voters, and it's not just Republicans, it's independents, it's Democrats. I mean, Hugh, we are winning the independents by double digits. Democrats are literally flocking to our side, and this is because we're talking about the issues that are most important to Virginians. Yes, schools and parents' rights, but also low taxes and the best jobs and safe communities. And oh, by the way, how about government that works for us and doesn't tell us what to do all the time?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Why don't we talk about Southwest Airlines, which has been in the news very recently?
Basically, Southwest had to cancel over 1,000 flights, and they claimed initially that it was for the weather. And a lot of them were actually out of Florida. And ironically, I was actually out speaking at a conference in Miami, and it was beautiful weather when I flew out on Sunday. So this was, of course, not weather related. They're trying to claim that it wasn't for pushing back against the vaccine mandates. But what a lot of people are speculating, and what I think there is some merit to, is that there is a group now of pilots who are saying we are refusing to be coerced by our employer to take the vaccine. And in fact, the Union of Southwest Pilots has filed a lawsuit in the Federal District of Texas. What's interesting, Eric, is that traditionally conservatives have been kind of anti-union for a lot of really good reasons.
Oh, yeah.
And to say that, we are coerced into having to give union dues, and then they, of course, funnel those dues to Democrat candidates or things like that. But this shows the power of collective bargaining. This group of pilots is now pushing back and saying we will not be coerced by our employer into unilaterally modifying our employment conditions to take a vaccine that could, by the way, have a lot of negative influence. I mean, there was a friend of mine who was even saying the other day that a friend of his, who is a pilot for a different carrier, has some anecdotal evidence to say that there have been some pilots who have had blood clots or, the myocarditis, other things at altitude. And so there are a lot of pilots that are very concerned about that.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Judge Thomas, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
57 Muslim states in the world, one Jewish state.
Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
There's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
How 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans.
Go to salemnow.com.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. We've been talking about the night Republicans had last night. They also won back the House of Delegates in Virginia, and of course, the Republican candidate beat Terry McAuliffe, the former governor of Virginia, former head of the DNC, and a lieutenant governor who happens to be a black female, won that race. So it's kind of awfully difficult to accuse Youngkin of being a racist, white supremacist, running on a white supremacist agenda when his lieutenant governor is black. However, Candace Owens was called a white supremacist, so I guess it's kind of how you feel. Now, the analysis on the part of many of these black pundits on CNN and MSNBC, and also on The View, Whoopi Goldberg, is that, well, the reason the Republicans won is because they sent a dog whistle to white racist voters. Jake Tapper had a much more sensible analysis.
And I think it's just important for us to remember the kind of the backdrop here. The backdrop.
Jake Tapper is a host of CNN. I watch, so you don't have to.
Is that President Biden's approval ratings are underwater. More people in the United States disapprove of his job performance than approve of his job performance. Yes. Inflation is up. Prices are up in terms of home heating oil. The job.
Gasoline.
The economy has not bounced back the way people wanted. People are still struggling with COVID. A lot of frustration in schools in New Jersey and in Virginia with mask policy, vaccine policy, parents frustrated because schools were closed, so in-person learning for so long.
It's so bad, we got to talk about it here on CNN. I don't want to. I'd rather not, but hey, what do you want me to do?
Discontent. You look at the right track, wrong track numbers. You ask voters, is the country on the right track or the wrong track? It's something like 75% say the wrong track.
Now, you want to find out why people are so frustrated? Listen to Tim Scott. Bernie Sanders had just spoken about the infrastructure bill, about all the good things that are in it, going to help the American people. And then Tim Scott, at a congressional hearing, said the following.
Senator Sanders has left, and I will say that America and our government is obviously serious about providing quality health care to as many Americans as possible. I think we spend somewhere near $400 billion for VA. We spend over $520 billion on Medicare. We spend probably $350 to $400 billion on Medicaid. We spend $200 or $300 billion on Obamacare. We have provided somewhere near $1.7 trillion for health care. We spend about $800 billion as a nation on public education, K through 12. But unfortunately, in the poorest zip codes of this nation, the system fails those kids, so that the quality of your education determines the quality of your life so often, and yet the poorest kids have too few options for quality education, and we fuse together the quality of your education with the quality of your future. I didn't come here to argue about the issues. I came here to make a difference about these issues. And frankly, I don't think we have done a good job making a difference for the average person in this country who watches the processes and the performances here in Washington, and they are sick to their stomach. And so when we hear that what we need is more money, and we have actually no conversation, no debate over what we're going to do with the money, of course it's frustrating. I hear my friends on the other side, and I watched in 2017 as we passed tax reform through reconciliation. As you said, Bob, without any question we did it. And what was the result of that reconciliation package? Well, it was in 2018, it was a 3% increase in revenue to the Treasury. In 2019, it was a 3% increase in the Treasury as well. And over those 3.5 years, we saw $4,400 come back to the average American family. We saw taxes for a single mother like the one that raised me go down by about 70%, her tax burden to the federal government. We saw about a 60% reduction in taxes, federal taxes, for working class Americans. If you're looking for a way to attack the rich, we actually created a system of taxation that is still progressive. But what we said was a little different. We said that actually creating incentives like the opportunity zone so that those who have will reinvest in places that don't, bringing about $75 billion back to the poorest Americans who happen to be consistently, disproportionately people of color. What we're concerned about in this process of reconciliation is not simply the process that we reach the end goal of getting it passed, though I am going to yell and scream about that too. It's what we're doing to the American people and not for the American people through this process with a equally divided 50-50 Senate with a 3-seat majority in the House and with a White House that's controlled by the party. If I were in charge, and I'm not, obviously, I would be thoughtful about deliberating, discussing, debating, disagreeing on those tenets or principles that we think move America in the right direction. This process has been missing. We're talking about spending more money this fiscal year than any country on earth has ever spent. And we're going to do that in the most partisan way. And I know the voters are watching, and I hope that the response and reaction that they have is an allergic reaction to this process and to the spending, because ultimately, and I predict this, in 3 to 5 years when we measure poverty in this country, it'll be worse than it is today. What we saw after the 2017 tax reform, we saw poverty hit the lowest level ever recorded. We saw the unemployment numbers hit the lowest numbers ever recorded. We saw labor force participation rates in the poorest communities go up. We saw the long-term unemployed come back to work. What are we seeing today? The exact opposite. So yes, we are frustrated by the lack of transparency that this nation has on the largest spending packages in the history of the country. And we're frustrated by the fact that when you call a COVID relief package a $1.9 trillion COVID relief package, COVID relief, but less than about 1% goes to vaccines and 9% goes to COVID-related health. Yes, we're concerned about the definitions of the words we're using when we have an infrastructure package that has about 10% in the next 5 years for roads and bridges. It's frustrating because the American people believe the words we use because the words we use are containers of power. And yet we deceive the American people in our packages by naming them something that sounds good, but the details are so murky you can't figure out what it is. And we're doing it again. At least when we talked about our reconciliation package, we said we are going to cut your taxes. We're going to return $4,000 to your household. We're going to make it easier for you to make decisions because we believe expecting 535 people in Washington to know what 330 million people should do with their money is ridiculous. So we'll give it back to you. You make your decisions. It actually works.
The DNC chair, his name is Jamie Harrison, says Youngkin was talking about critical race theory. It's a racist dog whistle. It isn't being taught in the Virginia schools. Oh no? Article, Virginia promotes book telling teachers to embrace CRT, which McAuliffe says isn't being taught. Teachers need to be taught how to question whiteness, says a book promoted by the Virginia Education Department. Also books by so-called anti-racist advocate Ibram Kendi. Remember the one who was giving the definition about what systemic racism is and said that systemic racism is when you have systemic racism, and when you don't have systemic racism, then you don't have systemic racism. What? The book was in the Virginia Department list, also promoted in the March 2020 newsletter, but they claim it isn't being taught in schools. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. Do not leave town.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
Justice is something a country must at least attempt to get right. You're going to have things that fall through the cracks. You're going to have externalities. You're going to have issues. But you have to at least try to make a country just. The current regime is basically saying we don't even want to attempt to preserve the American ideal of justice. That justice is nothing more than us being in charge and you being under our power. Socrates said, Is it not the purpose of a juryman's office to give justice as favor to whoever seems good to him, but to judge according to the law? This is what he is sworn to do. Our people in charge, our leaders, were sworn to protect our country. 1.7 million people just waltz right into the country. They get to have anchor babies. The other side wants to give them amnesty, wants to make them citizens. This is not sustainable. We know it's not sustainable. And the ruling class in both parties, by the way, the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, they want this for votes. They want this for government dependency. They want this for cheap labor. Now, I'm pleased to see that Texas is now stepping up and saying we're not going to put up with this. Texas needs to defy federal authority, arrest every single person that comes from this caravan. They need to be welcoming this caravan, not with benefits and signs, but with handcuffs and chartered flights back to right where they came from immediately. No questions asked. Don't put them in front of a judge. Put them on a plane and get them back. They broke the law. That would be justice. A 7-year-old would say, yeah, they deserve to go back because they broke our laws.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
How buoyed are you that Americans are finally waking up, JD?
Look, I'm very excited about what I'm seeing. Certainly in Virginia, but also in Ohio. It feels like there's a real grassroots movement brewing on the conservative movement right now. And it's, just like in times past, it's not just the politicos, it's not just the establishment folks. Sometimes not even people who are that political, but they're just very fired up about what their kids are teaching. Their kids are coming home crying, upset because they're being told that they're a bad person depending on the color of their skin, and they're just fed up about it. And I think it may very well take down Terry McAuliffe, but I certainly think it is the beginning of a movement all across this country.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Judge Thomas, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Hey Larry, this is Tom in Dayton. Thanks for all you do. Wish you were the next governor of the failing state of California, could turn things around. But the reason I'm calling, just had an idea. I think it's brilliant. The Biden administration wants to give illegal aliens $450,000 a person. Hunter Biden sells his paintings for $500,000. Why don't they just have Hunter Biden give the immigrants or the aliens one of his paintings? Then they get something of greater value. Hunter Biden can continue to support his lifestyle or whatever.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I'm Larry Elder. This is Ronnie. This is a Gap band, co-founder of the Gap band named Ronnie Wilson, died today at the age of 73. They are Oklahoma natives. He founded the group with his brothers, and they named the group after 3 streets targeted in the 1921 Tulsa race riots. Dead at the age of 73. Joe Biden today at a press conference said it is not true that the Biden administration is considering giving $450,000 to illegal aliens who were separated on the border during the Trump administration. He said it was false. It was simply not true. Maybe they're going to give $425,000. I mean, I don't know. We'll follow that up. But Joe Biden seemed to be denying it pretty flatly today. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. Now, all of you out there know that MyPillow doesn't have their box stores or any shopping channels. They've been part of this cancel culture, and they want to pass on the savings directly to you. You can get the lowest price in the history of MyPillow for their classic standard MyPillow, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with promo code. They also have a queen size, regularly $79.98, now $24.98 also with promo code. Or king size, regularly $89.98, now only $29.98 with promo code. MyPillow's not just pillows. They have over 150 products, everything from sleepwear to my new beds. Promo code also works on mystore.com and frankspeech.com. Just go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-890-1843. Be sure and use promo code Larry to take advantage of Mike's special offer on your standard MyPillow. That's mypillow.com, promo code Larry, or 1-800-890-1843. And again, we want to welcome our new station that started this week, KBET AM 790 in Las Vegas, and KRCK FM Palm Springs 98.1 and 99.5. They will air the show. They are airing the show live 3 to 6, Monday through Friday Pacific time. So thank you so much for joining us. You will not be disappointed. Now, the new chair of the DNC says Youngkin used CRT, critical race theory, as a racist dog whistle.
You know, we know dog whistles when we hear them, and but the sad part is that you even have some press who are following up with some of these same issues. I had an early interview today, and the person interviewing me said that critical race theory, and that it's taught in public schools in Virginia. I'm like, which ones? This is a theory in law school. This is a dog whistle to divide people.
Okay, Fox News article, Virginia promotes book telling teachers to embrace CRT, which McAuliffe and this gentleman just now said isn't being taught. The department's website provides resources for equity initiatives, which includes a tab, What We Are Reading. And one of the books is by a woman named Bettina Love. She co-founder of something called the Abolitionist Teaching Network. Here's what she wrote in We Want to Do More Than Survive, Abolitionist Teaching and the Pursuit of Educational Freedom. May I quote, thank you. Lastly, teachers must embrace theories such as critical race theory, settler colonialism, black feminism, disability, critical race studies, and other critical theories that have the ability to interrogate anti-blackness. Teachers must embrace theories such as critical race theory. By the way, on the reading list is also a book by so-called anti-racist advocate Ibram X. Kendi. By the way, his real name is Ibram Henry Rogers, but hey, Dr. J wasn't a doctor either, right? Here's what Ibram Kendi, by the way, once said when asked to define racism.
You talked about the importance of defining racism, but I unless I missed it, which is possible, I didn't hear your personal definition. Is there one that you would offer us? Like, how do you define racism?
Sure. So racism, I would define it as a collection of racist policies that lead to racial inequity that are substantiated by racist ideas. Sure. A collection of racist policies that lead to racial inequity that are substantiated by racist ideas. And anti-racism is pretty simple using the same terms. Anti-racism is a collection of anti-racist policies leading to racial, anybody want to take a guess? Equity that are substantiated by anti-racist ideas.
What the hell did he just now say? Anyway, his book is up there as well. And you are calling parents racist because they don't want their students to be influenced by teachers who are suggesting these kinds of things ought to be read? Unbelievable. Now, Glenn Youngkin, in his victory speech.
Friends, we are going to start that transformation on day one. There is no time to waste. Our kids can't wait. We work in real people time, not government time. And so on day one, we're going to work. We're going to restore excellence in our schools.
Sounds racist to me.
We will invest the largest education budget in the history of the Commonwealth.
Sounds racist to me.
We're going to invest in teachers, new facilities, special education. We're going to introduce choice within our public school system.
Man, that's really racist.
How about that? Choice within the public school system.
How about that?
We're going to start with 20 charter schools, and we are going to make a down payment and close the gap on giving parents an opportunity to select where their kids go to school. Friends, we're going to embrace our parents, not ignore them.
Making sure kids get a quality education. Supporting school choice. Putting more money into education. Sounds like a racist dog whistle to me, as described by the new DNC chair, Jamie Harrison. I say again, if white people spend as much time thinking about black people as pundits like that think they spend, white people would all be eligible for unemployment. 888-971-SAG. I am Larry Elder. Do not leave town.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
It's not just about saying I have a right in this country to not have the government not allow me to go to church, but also that the government cannot compel me to participate in any sort of event, including a vaccine, by the way, that goes against my sincerely held religious beliefs. And so it should just be a matter of course that if you have a conscious objection, then you can say, I, as a Christian, as a Muslim, as a Jew, as any sort of religion, I mean, this covers all religions, by the way, all faiths, all sincerely held beliefs, you should be able to say, I decline to be coerced into participation. But what we're seeing is that a lot of employers are not only requiring a lot of information for people to say, you know, well, you have to justify your religious exemption. We're also seeing that they want this so-called, what they're calling an interactive process. That's basically an interrogation. I have clients right now that they have filed for a religious exemption on the basis of we're pro-life, that's what the Bible teaches, and I cannot take this vaccine. And the Human Resources Department, from the legal counsel of these employers, want to sit down and basically interrogate them and say, is this really a sincerely held religious belief? And they're using this as a pretext to try to deny religious exemptions. It's absurd, and I hope that when there are more lawsuits filed, like just today, in Texas, United Airlines was forbidden from enforcing their vaccine mandate against employees who are claiming a religious exemption. So we're already seeing that the courts are protecting this, but hopefully it'll be more than just Texas.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
How buoyed are you that Americans are finally waking up, JD?
Look, I'm very excited about what I'm seeing. Certainly in Virginia, but also in Ohio. It feels like there's a real grassroots movement brewing on the conservative movement right now. And it's, just like in times past, it's not just the politicos, it's not just the establishment folks. Sometimes not even people who are that political, but they're just very fired up about what their kids are teaching. Their kids are coming home crying, upset because they're being told that they're a bad person depending on the color of their skin, and they're just fed up about it. And I think it may very well take down Terry McAuliffe, but I certainly think it is the beginning of a movement all across this country that's going to take down a lot of Democrats all over the nation.
In the break, we were talking to my team here, and somebody said, "Well, it's neck and neck, and if Glenn loses by 3 points, that's a big deal in any other normal election." And here's the reaction I have, JD. There is no such thing as a normal election after 2016. Do we have any faith that there will be a normal election? Talk to us about the recent breaking news about Facebook and the censorship of conservatives. You've written a piece about it. How do we get back to quote unquote normal, JD?
Oh, man, we got a lot of work to do. Facebook did two things basically in the 2020 election, one of which we've known about for a while. They basically censored information that was negative about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. They promoted information that was negative about Donald Trump. And I really believe that swung the election in a really important way.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
We are witnessing a political earthquake tonight, straight out of the San Andreas Fault, if that fault was on the East Coast. And by the way, the Lincoln Project, along with Bill Kristol, who plays a conservative on Twitter, they endorsed Terry McAuliffe. And as usual, they lost again, as they always do with every state race. Those, and I'll say this generously, scumbags who concocted a white nationalist hoax against Glenn Youngkin in the most pathetic, inept political stunt we've seen in modern politics, only help seal McAuliffe's fate. So that's very delicious. You could go in front of your home right now and burn money in the street before donating to those clowns or listen to Bill Kristol. But in Virginia, as you've mentioned, McAuliffe tried to run against Donald Trump instead of Youngkin in this race. The former governor even brought in Joe Biden, who broached Trump 24 times in one relatively short speech just last week. And that's what happens when you have nothing to run on, especially education. And now we're seeing in New Jersey, where I am, Jack Ciattarelli up here a little bit in this state. And even if Phil Murphy somehow pulls this out and wins a close one, Joe Biden won this state by 16 points a year ago. The president's coattails are non-existent. He is toxic. It will be a red tsunami in 2022.
And the Democrat did win governorship of New Jersey, barely. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. Larry Elder here, ReliefFactor.com studio. We are ready to launch something big. I want you to be part of it. If you like listening to my show, you'll love watching it. Also on SalemNewsChannel.com or the app with the same name. By the way, you can watch the show as we do it live. Just go to Larry Elder, YouTube.com, YouTube.com/The Larry Elder Show Radio. You can also load it on Apple or Android store or watch us on Roku. Just type Salem News Channel in the search bar. Come check us out. We are the antidote to the mainstream media. And soon we're going to begin adding new TV-only hours. This is only going to get bigger and bigger. Thank you for all you're doing to make this thing successful. We are on a mission, and you are a huge part of it. Andrew is in Stanhope, New Jersey. Andrew, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Andrew, how are you?
Good. Yeah, Whoopi Goldberg, her comments about lynching and it needs to be talked about. Funny, she's not going to talk about who was doing the lynching. It was her Democrat Party. The Ku Klux Klan was the terrorist wing of the Democrat Party, and the man that you played that was defining racism. Ironically, his definition was correct, but the policies that he supports are racist. The policies he supports cause the high out of wedlock birth rate in the black community, almost 70%. And ironically also, the policies Trump supported, the Second Chance Act, which made prison sentencing more equitable, which was discriminating against blacks, and the funding of historical black colleges, $50 billion, the Platinum Plan, Biden's crime bill versus Trump's Second Chance. So ironically, and look at the mayor of Chicago. She's the biggest racist of all against African-American young men. Look at all the killings. So he's right in his definition, but he's wrong in which policies are actually harming or racist and which ones are beneficial. And I just wanted to ask you, I was with the Associated Press last night in New Jersey in the one county election reporter, and it was a heavy Republican county. Jack Ciattarelli had a big lead.
Right.
He won big, but all night the other Murphy was in the lead all night. And why is that? Is that due to the mail-in votes? And how come it's all, so heavily to the Democrat, the mail-in votes in a Republican stronghold? So that definitely raises a red flag. And also, why didn't Newark and Essex County, which is my home county, why didn't they report? Everywhere in the state was reporting. At 8 o'clock, the polls closing, they didn't even have a single report yet, so that raises up a big flag.
Yeah, Andrew, I was watching that, and I knew that Newark hadn't reported yet, and that's why I was a little worried when Ciattarelli seemed to give a victory speech already, because Newark, of course, is heavily Democrat. Also, they hadn't counted the absentee ballot votes, and Democrats tend to vote absentee ballot earlier and more frequently than do Republicans. So I was a little worried about him doing a victory lap too soon, and at least so far it appears that Governor Murphy has retained his job.
Unfortunately. And like we were saying, you have to look at the policies and the parents. Just want to mention too the critical race theory, because I've been working with the local news in northeastern Pennsylvania and like in the Pocono area, and the parents that are against it most passionately are usually Latino and black, but the Latino parents are very emotional because they say they teach their kids the opposite, that they have, white people in their family or boyfriend, girl, they're mixed racial, and this is the polar opposite of how they raise their kids.
Well, Andrew, I'm going to have to leave it right there. What's interesting is the assumption is that virtually everybody black is in favor of critical race theory. I know a whole bunch of people who are against it, and many of whom are, quote, people of color. Now, $800 a year, that's how much the average family is putting back in their pockets every year by ditching Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile and switching over to Pure Talk. You get the same great coverage on the same great 5G network as one of the big guys, but for about half the cost. Now, I made the switch. The coverage, the U.S.-based customer service, fantastic. Pricing fair. It's really like wholesale rates. Unlimited talk, text, 6 gigs of data for just $30 a month. And now, Pure Talk's Black Friday pricing on phones, like the iPhone 12, just $479. 30-day risk-free guarantee. You ought to be a Pure Talk customer too. Here's what you need to do. From your cell phone, dial pound 250 and say Larry Elder, and you'll save 50% off your first month. That's pound 250, say Larry Elder, pound 250 and say Larry Elder. Some restrictions apply. Call for details.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Larry Sabato from the Virginia Center of Politics, and he said, for all the talk about the 2022 midterms, really what we need to be focused on is a 2021 midterm. That occurs November 2nd in Virginia.
Now, what occurs to me that is a great tell is President Biden is not coming to help out Terry McAuliffe. They're bringing in former President Obama to try and generate some enthusiasm without setting you up one way or the other. How do you cover critical race theory? Because it's become the central issue in Virginia. What do you say about it?
Well, critical race theory has become the proxy for the school district fight in Virginia and who should control what children are taught. And you have some of the largest and most liberal school districts in the country in Virginia. You also have some of the more conservative school districts in Virginia. And what I thought was key, and obviously you played this soundbite a lot, is the Youngkin-McAuliffe debate, which goes to show you why real debates and real news, especially in politics, are important and actually sometimes elicit the most interesting things, where Terry McAuliffe essentially said that parents should not have a say in what their children are taught, whether it relates to critical race theory, whether it relates to gender studies, whether it relates to transsexual issues, whatever it is. Terry McAuliffe thinks the school boards and the teachers unions know better. That's a perfectly legitimate political argument. What was interesting is he actually said the quiet part out loud. He said the thing that Democrats rarely, if ever, admit, which is they don't want parents' input if it disagrees with their worldview, and the parents shouldn't really have a say. Once he said that, and I think you would acknowledge, that's really when the race changed.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I think this family can pick you up every time you fall.
Every time I take one step forward.
When Wright came in this morning, he wants to fight you.
No one expected this out of him.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Larry, I really enjoyed your show, and I really enjoy your just wiseness in hitting right on the focal point of what this problem is right now. It's a cultural issue of whether we're going to accept communism and big brotherism from the government. And they're trying to do it with this COVID-19 supposed vaccine. And people are saying no. Well, now they're trying this Green New Deal garbage and this climate change stuff. The climate change garbage is a hoax. And what I want to see, and maybe you could host it, let's see if any scientist can really prove how our use of fossil fuels, namely natural gas, causes climate change.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. I believe climate change alarmism is a hoax. The idea that people like AOC and Greta Thunberg say that we're all going to be dead in X number of years is a hoax. By the way, a lot of people have offered money to a charity if Al Gore would debate them on the issue of climate change, and Al Gore has consistently said no. Pourquoi? Now, there's no doubt about it. We are facing a culture war in this country as left and right go to battle. As a listener to my show, you know who the warriors are in this culture war, and you need to nominate them in Salem's annual Culture Warrior of the Year Awards. Just go to my website, LarryElder.com, right now. Click on the banner so you can nominate Culture Warrior of the Year. Lynn is in Alameda, California. Lynn, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
Hi, Larry. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really hurt though about the election. They stole it from you, Larry.
Well, I'm hurt too. I really thought if I lost, I would lose by just maybe a couple points, if that. I was surprised by the margin of victory. I didn't say on my concession night, you probably saw it, I didn't say that I thought it was stolen. I said we should be gracious in defeat. But if anybody has any evidence that it was, I'm more than willing to hear it.
Well, Larry, I think I do have some evidence. They were, for one, they said that we could vote in person.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to the ballot area, they said no. We had to put them in envelopes. Because I went 2 days to the voting poll place where because I didn't know if I was making sure I was registered and everything.
Right.
So I got they gave us the envelope and the voting, the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because I went 2 days in a row, and I'm thinking I'm going to vote in person. You know how it used to be, Larry, where you go and they have the little booth,
right?
And then you put it in. You don't put it in an envelope. You put it right in the ballot box, where they don't see your address or anything. All they used to do is have it where you put it in there, and it's blank. Your name and nothing is on there. It's just the ballot.
Yeah, they don't do that anymore.
They're not doing that anymore.
No, they don't do that anymore.
No. So that's where they're cheating at. And then also, I took pictures of the polling place. They had vans. They were almost like the same van. They were all black SUV.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just bringing in ballots from other places. And I even asked them about it. I said, they're coming from different areas around the Bay Area. Oakland or Alameda. It was just, I couldn't believe it. And then I was interviewed twice by a Channel 7 reporter, because for one, I was petitioning for you. I had a recall sign out. I'm by myself by the print, where we doing the polling place, and so they were curious about why I was, out there, with this sign saying recall. I didn't have any name on it, just said recall. And so Channel 7 interviewed me, and then I think it was Chronicle, a paper. They was very curious. It was an Asian man, and then the one I recognized from Channel 7.
Mm-hmm.
But, of course, it didn't make the news. But I believe it was shenanigans, because it's like, wait a minute. I said, didn't we used to vote? Because they say, oh, yeah, you could vote, you have a choice. But then when I got there, it was like, no, you got to put it in the ballot. So in the envelope. So those envelopes, all of them were pink.
Right.
And on the outside of the envelopes, you have your address and your signature. So they see who you are, period.
Well, Lynn,
and then they open it up.
Well, then I'll tell you, on election night, I got all sorts of calls from people all over the state telling me they'd never seen lines this long, even for a general election. And, of course, this was a recall election. And Republicans tend to vote in person like you were trying to do. And I was hearing about how long the lines were. And a number of people told me when they got to their voting place, they were told they already voted when they hadn't voted. So these were stories I heard. But I'm not saying that the election was stolen. So those of you in the media who are listening to my program, don't write anything saying Elder says the election was stolen. I am talking about anecdotal evidence about how long the lines were, which gave me some confidence on election night that might be able to win this thing. And that there were a number of people, and there was a place on my website, electelder.com, where you could go to complain if you thought there were some irregularities. And we tracked down every single person who said that when they went to their voting place, they were told they didn't vote, and we made sure that they were, in fact, able to vote. But those are just the ones who complained at our website. Maybe there were others that just were told they didn't vote and didn't try. I have no idea. All I know is that it seemed to me that so many people told me that they've never seen lines this long. They had to stand in line for an hour and a half. And this wasn't a presidential election, wasn't a general election. It was a recall election. And these were all in Republican strongholds. That's all I'm saying. But Lynn, thank you very much for the call. I appreciate it. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. A Democrat strategist says the Virginia race should be a wake-up call for all Democrats. And Van Jones on CNN, I said he wasn't quite as bad as he was on election night when Donald Trump got elected. He didn't attribute this to white lash, but he also called Glenn Youngkin, quote, the Delta version of Trumpism, close quote. What? Sounds like what Gavin Newsom called me, quote, more Trump than Trump. Or are you bragging or complaining? Now, the 3-week quick start for Relief Factor is still been discounted to only $19.95. That is less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. And then after that, less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. If you've got pain, I'm talking about back, shoulder, neck, hip, foot, knee pain from exercise, or just getting older, consider ordering the 3-week quick start. The doctors who designed it selected the 4 best ingredients, each of which are drug-free ingredients to help your body deal with pain from a different metabolic pathway. Again, less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. Over 70% of those who order it go on to order more. After that, less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384.
Judge Thomas, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do.
I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
57 Muslim states in the world, 1 Jewish state.
Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
There's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
How 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans.
Go to salemnow.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
You do have the grassroots folks out there fighting for this on the Democratic Party side. The stakes are high. When this election is over in Virginia, we will know. Have we seen the emergence of the Delta variant of Trumpism? The Delta variant of Trumpism. In other words, I
wonder how long he worked on that line. Really? The Delta variant of Trumpism.
We've seen the emergence of the Delta variant of Trumpism. The Delta variant of Trumpism. In other words, Youngkin, same disease, but spreads a lot faster and can get a lot more places. The suburbs, if they fall to him,
that's implying that that Youngkin is more dangerous than the president, former president.
No, more easy to spread.
Okay,
because more easy to spread.
Honestly, more easy to spread. You know, like Jello. 888-971-SAGE. 888-971-7243. Sally is in Marin County. Sally, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
Oh, I'm your old buddy from March of 20. I am just so disgusted with what's going on as far as race is concerned, because everybody is so ignorant of the Bible that they don't know that God loves us, and he sent 70 people from the sons of
Eber as a spiritual guide for the 70 groups of people that were split off from Babylon to go into the other continents. And I am a minority, both in age and because I'm a professional white woman living in the suburbs, and I'm supposed to hate blacks. And if they love Jesus, I love them as much as God loves me. And it has nothing to do. I have different races of friends at my church. I just and by the way, Larry, if you got into the governorship, what in the world would you do with all those Democrats? You know.
Sally, thank you very much for calling. Believe me, I've thought about that many times as I was running. I said, after I win, running will be child's play because I'll be dealing with supermajorities in the Assembly, supermajorities in the House. There hasn't been a Republican elected statewide in California in 20 years. And they will be resisting me like nobody's business. The teachers union, the public sectors union, Hollywood, big tech, all of them will be marshaled against me as they were during the recall election when I was outspent 10-1, $200 million to $20 million. We scared them. Sally, God bless you. Thank you so much for the call. I am Larry Elder, the great Eldersky, the sage from South Central, the Prince of Pico Union. I will see you tomorrow. Be on time. I will be checking attendance. Out.